The Detroit Pistons fought off a Brooklyn Nets comeback. They've won 9 of their last 10 with 34 wins now. Cade did have a slow start, one field goal attempt in the first half. That marks the lowest first half total of his career. And if we're looking just as recently as yesterday, he had 3 in the first half. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to break down moments from the game, takeaways from the 8-game win streak, and Miami's post-Jimmy Butler era. Can they fight off Orlando, Atlanta, and challenge Detroit, who I think has the 6th seed on wraps right now? We're going to get into that. But first, I really want to welcome in Brennan Sims, contributor for All You Can Eat, fan-sided Detroit Bad Boys. My first interaction with him was through TikTok. Great, outstanding player breakdowns, analysis. So I've always enjoyed his work. Glad to have him on. So, Brennan, can you just tell us what you do, where people can find you?
Yeah, man. So, like you said, we met on TikTok. That's kind of how I got my start in NBA content creation. But I've since moved to writing. So, like you said, you can find my work at All You Can Heat through Fansided, the actual Fansided NBA page, and Detroit Bad Boys covering the Pistons. And I kind of just want to get my foot in the door and kind of cover the whole NBA, man. Like I just love basketball. I appreciate the game. Not one of those guys that just want to focus on the negativity side. Like we can critique players, but we should also show them love and just appreciate the game as a whole. Because the league has obviously I'm not 100 years old. I haven't seen every era of NBA basketball, but I feel like the league is the best it's ever been right now from a skill perspective. You got to make so many changes on defense because the players are just so good these days. But yeah, I kind of just want to cover the league as a whole, and so just been taking it day by day. You can find my work on Twitter at or X at Smoke Souls NBA. I do a lot of stuff on there, a lot of player breakdowns, and covering the Pistons right now. So glad
Yeah.
to be here.
Yeah, this is great. I like how you talked about trying to talk more positivity about players and not just being negatives. Because critiquing, like you mentioned, is a real thing you can do. But it, I think there's always so many people who are just so negative about every player. And we saw that tonight. Boos towards Killian Hayes every time he touched the ball. And I am a guy who has always been a Killian guy. I said as soon as he got drafted, he's going to be the player that can turn this franchise around. And I'm going to cheer for him no matter what happens. Obviously, rough career in Detroit. You can talk about the hip injury. You can talk about coaching. You can talk about management. But I mean, I don't think it's right to boo a player when they're coming back, especially when it wasn't their fault. Everything went bad. Yes, he didn't play great, but what around him wasn't great either. So, what is your take on the booing for Killian?
Yeah, man. Like when Jimmy Butler come back to Miami, I understand the Bulls. When Vince Carter went back to Toronto, I understand the Bulls. But Killian, it's just more so he didn't work out as the number 7 overall pick. So I wasn't a huge Killian. Well, and to answer the question, I didn't like the Bulls because it's like it wasn't like he slimed off the franchise. It just didn't work out. But I never was a huge Killian guy. But I always saw that he could play defense. And he was a nice passer, a okay handle. All of that stuff adds up to a decent backup point guard, in my opinion. But Pistons fans, he was the 7th overall pick, and they could not separate the two. He's the 7th overall pick. He's supposed to be something more than what he is. But me from the outside looking in, it's like, man, he could be an okay backup. You got to separate the draft stock. I know that's hard to do. It's kind of impossible to do. But that was always my thoughts on Killian. I thought he had some stretches where he looked good for Detroit. And obviously, like when they was trying to play winning basketball, it didn't always work out. But born a player who didn't divide a locker room and who didn't like purposely take a season, I don't know.
Yeah,
But it is what it is.
yeah, that's a tough one. And he had some moments tonight as well, but for a lot of the times he got taken out. Wasn't really big for the Nets tonight. But Detroit came into this game off an 8-game win streak, or I'm sorry, came off losing to the Nuggets after an 8-game win streak. So we saw a great stretch from Detroit. So what were some takeaways from that 8-game win streak? What can we take away?
Yeah, the competition wasn't as strong, but it doesn't matter because a team like this, like just talking about tonight too. When I was watching in the first quarter and they went on that big run, it's like, man, this isn't a team that's getting hyped to get a lead. They're not getting super excited. It's like they expect to win these games. And I think that when you beat Philly without K to start the streak, that just set the tone. And the Boston game was a huge game. Asar locking up Tatum, everybody balling. But I feel like the Atlanta game was just that was personally my favorite game of the streak because Dyson Daniels is an outstanding defender, man. Like Jalen Williams from OKC talked about how perimeter players should have a Defensive Player of the Year award. If they had that, Dyson Daniels would be probably the front runner. And just watching Cade just dominate him, man. I know the Hawks as a team is not good defensively. That's why Dyson Daniels won't get Defensive Player of the Year love this year because as a team they kind of just average. But just watching Cade just go to work, man, that was just all NBA first team stuff, man. But everybody else contributing too, like Tobias, Asar, growing every single night. Like watching Asar is something that he does every game, and it's like, man, he might be an all-star too, you know?
Yeah.
During the activity on defense and his growth throughout the season has been great. I feel like Duran is a very interesting piece because he's extension eligible this summer, and the way he's playing now, he's worth something, So we'll see how that goes in the summertime.
Yeah, and I love how you talked about players stepping up throughout the streak as well, and it wasn't just Cade dominating. And throughout the season, we've seen that Detroit has the personnel that can fit around Cade Cunningham to make him better. And during tonight's game, obviously we saw a rough stretch from Cade the first half, 0 for 1 in the first quarter as well. But the rest of the starters in that first quarter, 8 for 13, but it was spread all around. Tobias Harris with 6, Duran with 6, Harris with 5, Asar with 4. I mean, overall, this team is built to not only surround Cade, but also built to, if he's struggling, they can pick up the pace. And I think more than just offense, you're looking at defense from Jalen Duran tonight. 6
Hmm.
in this game. I think 3 of them were in the first quarter, and that's a career high for him.
Oh
So
yeah,
seeing what he was able to do on the defensive end, it fills me with a lot of confidence going forward because, like you said, he could be an all-star type player as well. I mean,
that
yeah,
the way he caught that block and pushed it in transition, it's crazy.
yeah, it's beautiful to see. So usually we're seeing Isaiah Stewart being the guy on the defensive end for this Detroit team. And so when people are talking about the center rotation, they're saying, okay, you want Jalen Duran in for the offense, you want Isaiah Stewart in for the defense. But tonight we just saw that Jalen Duran can give you both.
Oh yeah, and Jalen Duran, like just throughout the year, I know he talked about it himself how he was kind of playing weak to start the year, but his level of aggression in the pick and roll, like coming up and hedging and getting back and just rotating and everything, the improvement has been crazy. Like he's been night and day from like maybe it started in like the middle of December all the way until now. His defense has been much improved throughout this Pistons dominant stretch.
Yeah, and his playmaking as well. It's
Oh
just
yeah,
been beautiful to see. He's been one of the best facilitators over the past 10, 12 games. I know there was a stretch where in a 10-game stretch, he was between Jokic and Embiid.
right.
So that's an elite company to be talking about, like over a Sabonis, over a Şengün. So if he can continue that, maybe we're talking about all NBA. And I know we're really early on the Cade Cunningham all NBA talk, but the ceiling for Jalen Duran's up there as well. If he's playing defense and he's scoring inside and he's facilitating and he's doing everything he can on the offensive end, I mean, that's an all NBA level player as well. When you're talking about the center position.
Oh yeah, he and the way he can kind of get it and go as a center is kind of cool, man. Like he's thrown so many lobs to Asar Thompson this year.
Yeah.
Like I remember seeing people kind of shaking off those two can play together, and they are kind of silencing everything. Now you want to see in the playoff setting. That's why these playoffs are going to tell a lot. Even though the Pistons are super young, you can just kind of tell what their archetypes like who fits together and who doesn't or whatever. But right now, those two are playing extremely well together. Asar and Duran.
Yeah. And those are guys who are going to be fighting on the glass most nights. But tonight against Brooklyn, we lost the second chance points battle. And a lot of that came in that third quarter. I mean, it was 18 for
Hmm.
Brooklyn to 8 for Detroit. And usually we're seeing Detroit dominate in all these effort stats. And Detroit did win in points in the paint, 52-44. They dominated in the fast break, 36-19. But the reason these games are close is from some of these effort stats. And so going forward, what are we kind of looking for Detroit to be able to continue on what they did in that 8-game streak?
Yeah, like you said, all the hustle stats, all the points in the paint, they've been so dominant in the paint. Duran is like, seems like he just doesn't miss in the paint, and Asar is finishing well too, shooting like close to 70% at the
Yep.
rim. But yeah, the fast break game has been elite, and I know that that doesn't always translate to the playoffs because the game kind of slows down. The half court is more important, but for right now in the regular season, for them to move up to try to get the maybe the fifth seed, that transition game has been elite, man. It's a show. Like I call them the 2025 Lob City. Like the way Cade throw lobs, Asar the way he catch them, Duran can throw them, Asar can throw them too. Tobias caught a lob tonight, like the old man getting up.
Mm-hmm.
He,
Unk.
he has been he's been so good for this team, man.
Yeah.
Like the Sixers wish they still had Tobias Harris.
What a fumble from Philly going from, and that's crazy to say, a fumble going from
So
Tobias Harris to
crazy.
Paul George. Like a
It's like
year ago,
nobody expected that.
nobody. It's crazy with these veterans also playing at that high pace because we're talking about this Detroit team in their last 3 being the first in the NBA in fast break scoring with 26.7, and that's 2 more than Chicago. And it's weird to say Chicago there because they're usually that slower team, but it feels like this year they've been picking up the pace as well. But looking at the additions Detroit has made with Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, bringing in Dennis Schroeder at the trade deadline, those aren't known for being elite athleticism, run down the court players, but they're making it work. I mean, they're fitting really well around these players. Other than kind of just overall shooting, what are those veterans doing for this team?
Well, Tobias is just kind of just so steady. Like you can tell that his steady demeanor is kind of rubbing off on everybody, and that's great. And well, to Dennis Schroeder too, like he slows the game down. Like that pass he made to Fonteca, was that last night at the end of the quarter? Like when he just slowed the game
Mm-hmm.
down, a few seconds left, and threw that beautiful pocket pass to Simone. So Dennis Schroeder's pace and him being a secondary ball handler is super important. And I always harp back on the playoffs, but it's going to be huge that somebody can take pressure off of Cade and handle the ball some. So Asar is obviously grown in that aspect, but Dennis Schroeder is kind of a proven great secondary playmaker. So that's going to be huge for the Pistons in the playoffs. And Tim Hardaway and Beasley, never going to be the best defenders ever. That's never going to be their games, but just being steady, talking, making sure you're peeling out when somebody's wide open. But those two, man, the shot making,
Mm-hmm.
Malik Beasley is looking like the best shooter in the league.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's a league with Steph Curry, so I can't say that. But like this season, Malik Beasley has been one of the best shooters in the NBA, man. And the confidence, just he'll take any shot, and it's needed.
yeah,
So he's gonna be huge down the stretch. And you got to keep him. I don't know how much you want to pay him, but
pay him whatever.
you got to keep him.
Yeah, he's been great for the culture as well, and you can't talk little about that. And especially, I'm excited to see the playoffs because when you talk about Malik Beasley in his Lakers tenure and his Bucks tenure, both of those kind of went off the rails. And they also saw Malik Beasley doing what he's doing now, being one of the greatest shooters in the league, but they also saw a streaky Beasley too. But a lot of that comes with confidence. And I think being in a culture that, I mean, if you have a bad game, you can bounce back and you have a fan base that can get behind you. So maybe that's something that's rubbing off on him in Detroit. And hopefully it's something that into the playoffs, he can continue that insane 3-point volume. So with Malik Beasley as well, we're talking about a player that can play off of Cade Cunningham, and we're seeing Cade Cunningham absolutely struggle these last 2 games with tough defense, traps, double teams. What can Cade do to make it so he can get back to his all NBA numbers? Because everyone loves stats. And before we get into that, I just want to say everyone loves stats. Everyone loves what Cade Cunningham's doing. But stats in wins, when you're up by so much, don't matter so much. The biggest thing is when it gets to the third quarter and Brooklyn gets within 6, that's when you need Cade Cunningham to step up. And we did see that with a few different plays throughout there. But what can Cade Cunningham do to make sure, and I guess what can JB Bickerstaff do as well, to make it so Cade doesn't struggle so much in these half court sets?
Yeah. I think a lot of it goes to just like how teams are playing him, man. Like, cause Denver kind of ran a box and one, like a high school defense yesterday. But you can obviously mix it up, get it to him in the post, because if you double out of the post, it's easier kickouts to the shooters. Asar having the ball today, sometimes it worked good for the Pistons. Asar bringing it up and K kind of starting off ball. So maybe Asar can bring it up, you give it to K on the wing, and he can attack off the pick and roll like that. But just making sure he constantly moving. And if teams want to just sell out and double team him all game, you got to take advantage of playing 3-on-4.
Yeah.
You got to take advantage of that at all times. If teams want to just completely, okay, we're gonna stop number two tonight. So. But I think it was a few possessions tonight where he posted up, he drew two to the ball, and the shooters made shots. That's kind of the other fact. Like, I know they say it was a make. They say the NBA is a make or miss league, and that still is what it is. If you double K, he kick it out to Beasley or Hardaway or Tobias in the corner wide open. We got to make them.
Yeah, and if he's doing that every time, I don't care if he has 12 points. So, because he's making the right reads, and he's a player that can fit with any star player. And last episode, 2 episodes ago, we were talking about the Naz Reid fit with Detroit.
Mm.
And I think that would be an intriguing fit because you get Cade Cunningham, a guy who loves to move the ball, and you get Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson, two guys who love to move the ball, and you put them with a player like that. I mean, getting a player who can dribble, who can score inside, who can play defense, who can score from outside, from the mid-range, fadeaways, can do everything. So if you can think of an ideal fit, is there a better one than Naz Reid?
No, I would love Naz Reid for the Pistons, man. I'm not the biggest cap guy, but I do know that Naz Reid is gonna command a lot of money this offseason. I think he declined in like his $15 million contract. I wouldn't be. I mean, is he gonna make 30? I'm not sure because with the second apron, teams have been kind of not maxing people out and giving them crazy contracts. But Naz Reid is, like you said, dribbling. Like I think he might have the best handles as a center, man.
Oh,
When I say handles, I mean like crossovers and stuff, because you could argue Jokic for like ball control
of
and
course,
all of
yeah.
that stuff.
He's the
But like
twit.
yeah, man, like Jelly fan for a reason. Like Nas Reed he a dog, and if he played in Detroit, just playing off a K, that 2-man game would be ridiculous. Because Nas Reed in the pick and roll, like you said, he could shoot it, he could pop out, he could roll, he's a decent passer. So if you did find a way to keep During, if you got Nas Reed, the pick and roll with him, like that 2-man game would be crazy too. So Nas Reed, I don't know if it's a better fit out there, man. I know a lot of people like Devin Booker because
Mm,
he's from Michigan and stuff, but I know the NBA is so unpredictable these days, but I still personally think Devin Booker is a Suns lifer. I
yeah.
think he is definitely Kobe Bryant inspired, and I think he already the Suns all-time leading scorer. But obviously, that's a great fit too, man. If you can get Book in Detroit, that would be great too. But I kind of see him as a Suns lifer personally.
Yeah, and with the Budenholzer rumors, and a lot of people are saying that Devin Booker's are going to request a trade. But man, I think they're going to fire their coach before they trade away Devin Booker because you don't
Yes,
just trade away a guy who scored 71 points.
literally.
I say that, but the Mavericks traded away Luka Doncic. So anything can happen in this league. We can talk about that for hours, but we're going to
Right.
table that one. But talking about great fits in Detroit, I mean, another player, and you mentioned Booker, I mentioned Tyler Hero, and
Okay.
you are a big Miami Heat guy. So I kind of want to talk about and shift to the Miami Heat perspective. We're in the post Jimmy Butler era. They're currently the 7th seed, 28-30. They're about 3.5 games back from Detroit, and they're fighting now with Atlanta, Orlando, and there's one more team. Oh yeah, the Bulls in the play-in, but for the most part, it's
Yeah.
Orlando and Atlanta. So what can Miami do through the rest of the season to maybe prove themselves at a higher tier than Orlando and Atlanta to maybe get to Detroit and challenge for that 6?
Well, I will be honest. Full transparency, I think that the 6th seed is wrapped up. I think the 6th seed will be between the Pistons and the Bucks. The Pistons will have to collapse for Miami to catch them, and I don't know if we can run off a 5 to 6 game winning streak because we are a super up and down team, man. Like we just played Atlanta last week twice. One game we had 80 something. The next game we had 131. We beat good teams, we lose to bad teams, so it's kind of like I don't see us going on a crazy winning streak like that. But in terms of just us proving ourselves amongst Orlando and Atlanta. Orlando just lost Jalen Suggs. Big blow for them because the offense is already not that good over there. Even though they have Paolo and Franz, two All Star caliber players, their offense is just stale, man. So they kind of lose games on their own, like just not scoring enough points and just not moving the ball. I think a lot of it has to do with spacing over there, but so I think we can finish higher than them in Atlanta the same way. Atlanta just so up and down. I don't kind of see them being real threats to pass us as a 7 seed. But yeah, for Miami, this year is kind of a developmental year for me, man.
Mhm.
Tyler Hero has had a breakout year, hasn't resulted into winning that much, but he is he's an all-star. You know, he got that under his belt now, so his confidence has been through the roof. Bam is kind of having a down year offensively. Well, not kind of all the way, but defensively, he is still one of those guys that can impact the game defensively and kind of carry a defense. So, Khalil Ware, solid rookie, has shown some shooting flashes. In the paint, his defense has been up and down. He kind of go for a lot of fakes, but the shot blocking potential is there. He's just got to stay more disciplined. And catching live, like his live radius is ridiculous. You can kind of throw it anywhere Khalil Ware is going to get it. So those three are the main players who I kind of look at like we need to retool around those three. Um, but yeah, I don't think they can catch the Pistons, honestly. Not the way they play up and down, and the Pistons look like a steady engine right now. So I don't think they can catch the Pistons.
And that's the crazy thing to hear because when you think of Detroit, you don't think of a steady team that has the sort of ability to wrap up a playoff seeding and maybe get home court advantage. And it's weird to think of Miami being under them at this point. And that's not me
Yeah.
rubbing it at all to a Miami fan here, but when you're looking at Miami, what is something that they can do within the next year to kind of turn things around? Obviously, they're a free agent destination. They're always going to be on people's short list of teams they want to go to. Sometimes they don't end up with the player, but just being on those lists is a big thing. So,
Right.
what are some players maybe that they can get? What is something they need to do for next year to get back in the playoff hunt, the top 6 seeds?
So this name does sound kind of crazy because it would just be it would be just Ole defense all day between the backcourt. But honestly, I'm kind of tired of seeing a good defense with a terrible offense, man. I want Trey Young.
Mm.
I get it. I get it. Trey and Tyler Hero will be fooled on defense. Everybody will get off against them. But at the same time, I believe in Bam that much, and I think Bam obviously, if he played with Trey, he would expend way less energy on offense. So, and he already one of the best defenders in the league. Me personally, I think he's the most versatile. I think Wemby might be more impactful with the paint defense and stuff, but he kind of undisciplined sometimes. But he is obviously he was going to win Defensive Player of the Year this year. And then Mobley and Jaren Jackson, they great defenders too. But I think Bam can cover up so much that I'm willing to bet on a Hero and Young backcourt. I think the offense will be way better. Tyler Hero is having a career year playing on the ball, but I do believe that deep down, for us to be real contenders, he's an off ball threat. He's an off ball player. Like he is not a primary ball handler on a contending team. You know, that's like he has grown a lot, you know, but it's still situations where it's like, ooh, like when he get trapped and he don't always make the right read, it's like, okay, he's a natural off ball player. So if we could find a way to get Trey, man, I wouldn't want to trade Hero, Bam, or Ware. I know that's tough to do because if we did end up getting Trey with those four, that would be our contracts for the foreseeable future. But man, I just think that I think Young will make the game so much easier for Bam and Khalil Ware. Because look at all the lives Khalil Ware catch now, and he is not getting the best passes. Like they just throw lives up anywhere. Imagine him with Trey Young when Trey Young has that floater into a lob thing going on with
Mhm.
Ware and Bam. Their lives would be so much easier. And then if Ware can become the lead defender like he has the potential to be, they can offset Young and Hero backcourt. Which, like I said, that backcourt would be bad defensively. You know,
Yeah.
but they just got to fight. Trey Young hasn't been the worst defender in the league this year.
No,
He
not at
hasn't been what he was like he was 2 years ago. He's never gonna be good at 6'1". But as long as you fight and you show effort and you communicate, me personally, I can live with that.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously Trey Young has been compared to Luka Doncic in a lot of ways since they've been drafted. especially from being traded for each other. But when you're looking at what the Dallas Mavericks built last year, they kind of had that same sort of thing. When you have a guard, ball dominant, has to use a lot of their energy on offense, you kind of just have to separate or surround them with a whole bunch of defensive pieces. And that's what Dallas did at the deadline last year, getting Gafford, a PJ Washington. So I think that's a potential that has the potential to work, especially if you work around the edges and try to get the right pieces.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, how Dallas, how they got PJ and Derrick Jones Jr. and Lively and Gafford, like
Mhm.
they just surrounded Kyrie and Luka with all defensive minded players. And I think that Ben was a better defender than all of those dudes. I know that's just one person, but as you know, in basketball, one person can impact the game so much. Like I don't ever see a scenario where a Bam Adebayo led Eric Spoelstra and Bam Adebayo led defense is going to be the worst in the league. I kind of don't care who was around them. They are not going to be one of the worst defenses in the league with those two at the helm. So I'm willing to make that bet and just try to do that because the offense these last few years, man, has just been even with Jimmy Butler, the offense has just been so garbage. No, there's
Yeah.
no other way to put it. The offense has not been good. We need an elite playmaker. And Trae Young, with the Hawks trading DeAndre Hunter, I don't think that they're swinging for the fences trying to win at all costs. They got Jalen Johnson over there, Zachary Richardson, or we should say over there. He kind of looked good as of late, so they might want to build around those two. So if Trae Young was on the block this summer or next summer, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And that's a possibility of how they can quickly kind of get back into the mix for these sort of things. And it's weird for Detroit because they're also a team that's kind of bought into the offense, but this year we're seeing them buy heavily into the defense. And we're going to be able to see that kind of tested out in these next few days. I mean, Wednesday, they go against the Clippers, so they have a rematch. All right, sorry, Monday, they actually play against Utah. So
Right.
hopefully they can have a 2-game win streak there. Then they have a rematch against the Clippers, then have a tough game against the Warriors. We're going to be here to break it all down. But Brennan, can you again go over kind of where people can find you and what you do?
Yeah, like I said, you guys can find me on X at Smoke Souls NBA. I'll be talking about the Heat, the Pistons, and kind of showing love to the all the NBA players overall. And if you're expecting like kind of just positivity, player breakdowns, film of like subtle things, I guess, like things that aren't always just threes or crazy dunks. Like I try to show screen navigation, tougher shots like deep shots, or just low key players too. I love to show up the low key players because in high school that's the kind of player I was, and I know that players like that they deserve some pub, So
Yeah.
that's kind of what I like to do.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Like I've said, I've enjoyed your work for a long time, and we'll have to do this again soon.
For sure, man. Appreciate you.
Okay. So make sure you check us out on the Leggy Sports YouTube channel. We're going to be breaking down Pistons content, breaking down plays, deep dives into games, all of the above. So make sure to check it all here. Have a great night. Go Pistons.